My name is Brad Chase. I started Microsoft in 1987 and left in 2001. I was born in San Francisco and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. Raised by a single mom, one brother, still close, and went to Berkeley for school. I only really applied to two schools, Stanford and Cal, because I wanted to stay in California. My undergraduate was in business, in marketing and economics, but I took a large number of liberal arts courses as well. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. In 1982, when I graduated from college, there was a recession and I couldn't get a job. And I went about 6 months unemployed. And then I got a job in sales and worked for sales for about 3.5 years or so. That was a really great experience because most people sort of think of sales as, a used car salesman or something like that. But in reality, sales is a transformative experience, and it was a great way to start my career. I learned a lot about listening, understanding customer needs, how to be persuasive, and that was a really great experience. And while I was doing that, I had a stepfather who used to build kits, electronic kits, and he built this Heathkit computer, and it was this monstrosity of a thing, and then didn't know what to do with it. So he gave it to me. I put it in the living room where I was rooming with a person and started playing with it. And I decided that was the future. And then I realized what I wanted to do, which was to go back to business school because I wasn't going to become a programmer at that age and get into the computer industry. And that was my whole focus when I went to business school. So I went to Chicago for business school to Northwestern because I wanted to get experience somewhere else. And I was researching the industry and got interested in Microsoft. And there was a fellow person studying at Kellogg named John Nielsen. And when I got the interview with Microsoft, I went to John because I had heard he already had an offer from Microsoft. And John gave me some good hints on sort of how to do the interview and things to think about with Microsoft and insights. I think I was sort of like a deer in headlights when I first started working for the company. I didn't understand the lingo or, what it was like to be in that industry yet. One of my first meetings was a staff meeting. Valerie Houchins was my boss at the time, and I was a product manager at Microsoft, worked for the Macintosh. And where I'm in a staff meeting and I'm quiet, just listening, and they start talking about something, and Valerie says, "Well, let's take that offline." I'm thinking to myself, what the heck does offline mean? But slowly I learned the lingo and, we figured it out. At that point in the company, I worked in the marketing group. All the marketing people worked in the same organization. So I was able to pick things up and everybody was pretty friendly about helping you out and understand. And I slowly sort of got my arms wrapped around what it was like to be a product manager at Microsoft. And I came in with a class of students too. So there were others like Melinda Gates, French Gates was, Melinda French at the time was part of that class. And other people like John Rangel were part of that class. All of us were asked to come to an offsite that was happening in Seattle before we actually started. It was in the spring, I think, before we started. And the offsite was the Microsoft Applications Marketing offsite. And the reason they asked us to come was to help us understand the company's strategy and how that, background would impact our job. So we went to this set of presentations and strategy discussions, and there were lots of people there who were giving talks, Jeff Rakes, Jeff Sanderson, and many others, Phil Welt. And they outlined how the whole applications division strategy was to bet on GUI and Windows. Because at that time, Microsoft had a great business with MS-DOS. Windows was, not much of anything at that time. The applications division had great revenue from the Macintosh applications, where we were number one with Word, Excel, Works. But on the MS-DOS side, we were behind WordPerfect. We were behind Lotus 1-2-3, and the company had decided that the strategy to try to beat those companies with another better MS-DOS product wasn't going to work. Users just weren't going to switch. You have to have a really compelling reason for users to switch. And so they outlined the strategy at this retreat that if we got the world to move to Windows and came out with great Windows apps, then maybe since they were already switching to Windows, people would switch to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and what, of course, later became Microsoft Office. And so that was a formative experience before actually we even started. That was amazing because, of course, we came to work at Microsoft and then watched that strategy that was outlined before we even started play out and come true. And as we, sort of saw a computer on every desk in every home, running Microsoft software, we saw the applications division have great success with that strategy. Mike Maples was the head of the applications division, a great guy. Mike called me into his office after I'd been working on Microsoft Office for a little while, running the launch of Microsoft Office for Windows and marketing Microsoft Office for the Mac. And Mike said, "Brad, they want to interview you to be the group product manager for MS-DOS." And I said, "But Mike, I'm on Office. It's the future of the company. MS-DOS is in its final years. Why would I go do that?" And he looked at me and he said, "Change is good." And I went back to my office and I was mad. It felt so trite to me to say change is good. But I got the message that one of my mentors was telling me I should go interview for this job. Now, by the way, with a benefit of hindsight, Mike was very wise. And I found myself later, when I was a senior executive, giving the same advice to other people that change was good. So I was wrong about that. Anyway, I went and interviewed with Brad Silverberg, who became a great friend and great mentor and a great partner. And I worked with him for a long time at Microsoft. And I interviewed for this job on MS-DOS and got the job. And people perhaps don't know or realize or remember the history and how transformative it was for Microsoft to have the MS-DOS. It was the revenue, cash cow for Microsoft for, probably a decade. I don't know exactly how long. And it was fundamental to the strategy. At the same time, one of the special things about Microsoft and the reason it's continued to be an enduring and successful company is the company's had the ability to grow and adapt and learn and implement new strategies as the market changed. Successful business starts with successful strategy, and it's all about the bets you make, the fundamental bets you make. Microsoft made a fundamental bet on MS-DOS. It led to great success. Microsoft then actually helped, sunset MS-DOS by betting on Windows and GUI, and that was a big success. And Microsoft's made other big bets, whether it be the cloud or AI or whatever. I'm not close to it anymore. But those bets, the correct bets, are fundamental to the success of a company. Brad asked me to come over and reimagine the Windows 95 marketing team. Windows 95 was a game changer for several reasons. One was the whole user experience was improved dramatically, and the team did a great job with that. By introducing the start button and that whole sort of experience, and doing that at a time when computers themselves were getting more capable and more powerful. And so you put all that together, and Windows 95 was really the ushering of computers into the mainstream. And as a marketing team, I wrote a strategy I called the Educate, Engage, and Excite strategy, the 3 E's, which was all about making Windows 95 a consumer phenomenon, to take away the fear of upgrading to a new version of Windows or buying a new computer with Windows 95, and to make it so exciting and have so much press about it that you just couldn't get away from it. And we succeeded on that strategy. The team I led did an amazing job. John Shirley used to say that PR was the best marketing tool because it was free. Or not, almost free, right? And so you're right when you say that back in those days, especially before the internet was a big deal, you had to get in Business Week and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and all the millions of computer magazines, and to get the attention to get people to focus on your product. So having big launch events helped that. Now, to be fair, it wasn't ever a marketing plan just based on big launch events. There was lots of work done, behind the scenes to educate consumers, educate businesses, get, key influencers, knowledgeable about the products that were involved. So whether it was Windows 95 or MS-DOS, I did a million press tours and was always traveling the country and we did seminars and, we did ads in magazines and, the big television ad for Windows 95. And so there was a lot of effort beyond the launch events, marketing software in those days, as I'm sure there is today. But it was very different because we didn't have the internet for some of the early days. We had the first commercial that Microsoft had ever done for a single product, the Windows 95 Start Me Up ads. So back in the day when we had commercials, we wrote a creative brief, about a 1 or 2 page summary of what we wanted the ad agency to know about Windows 95 and what we wanted them to communicate. And I rejected the concept 3 different times. They were just not quite getting there. So the 3rd or 4th time they came, they presented the idea for Start Me Up. I loved this concept. And they said, but there's a problem. We can't get the rights to the song unless we're willing to sponsor the next Rolling Stones tour for $10 million. And needless to say, I was angry because they knew we didn't have $10 million to spend on this. And I wasn't going to sponsor the next Rolling Stones tour. And I'm like, well, okay, you present me a concept that's on strategy, builds on the iconic start button, is perfect for what we're trying to achieve to, reinforce this consumer phenomenon. But I can't use it. Why did you present me a concept I can't use? And they said, well, we were hoping you would negotiate with the Rolling Stones. So I flew to Amsterdam to meet with the Rolling Stones personnel. We were in an old ornate hotel, and the fans were outside mulling around trying to see if they could see the Stones. But we were negotiating with sort of their team that really actually managed their concerts as opposed to the managers. And we negotiated all day, and we weren't making much progress. And I had to get back. They said, well, let's negotiate all day tomorrow, and then you could come to the concert. I'm like, what's the concert? Well, the Stones were playing the equivalent of an unplugged concert. That was a big thing back then, MTV unplugged concerts, where a lot more acoustical and smaller crowds and very cool stuff. And I said, well, I can't stay. And they said, well, we have a dress rehearsal tonight. Why don't you come for the dress rehearsal? So I went to the Paradiso, which was still is a really cool venue in Amsterdam. And I got to watch a complete run through of the concert. They played everything. They stopped periodically to give each other a hard time. I remember Mick Jagger giving Ron Wood a hard time about smoking too many cigarettes and, stuff like that. And they did this unbelievable concert. And I was one of only 2 people in the entire place that wasn't Stones personnel. So it was really a special experience, a experience I'll remember the rest of my life. So we agreed on a price, and then they sent the wrong version of the song, not the iconic version. And the reason they sent that version of the song was they didn't have to pay one of their previous band members if they used a later version. But we needed the famous version. So we got the famous version of the song and said to them, look, we need it. And they agreed. And I heard later that Mick Jagger didn't want to do it, but that he was afraid to piss off Keith Richards, who really wanted the money. That's the story I was told. So they agreed. They sent us the real version. The team did an amazing job. Wyden Kennedy, Cynthia, everybody working on it. to put together the commercial, and they came to show it to me for my approval. The only thing I'm asked is that you make the ending more dramatic, because the ending of the commercial just didn't quite live up to the wonderful nature of the entire thing. And so they added an ending where a young girl turns around and looks at the camera, just as, sort of the commercial's ending, and it was perfect. And that commercial ratings were off the charts. And that was really maybe, still one of the most famous Microsoft commercials ever done. The internet was really starting to become a big thing as we got towards the launch of Windows 95. And in some ways controversial. There was a set of us, I remember Brad, myself, others, who were saying, look, this is going to change computing again, and we need to be on top of it. And there was some, even in Microsoft, some skeptics. So the first thing we did was we got working on an internet browser, and launched with Windows 95 in the OEM version, and then later as part of the upgrade. And our browser wasn't really that good, but we all realized in the end that the internet was going to change the whole computing industry again. So we started working on all sorts of stuff to make a better browser, to make other products to go with it. And, I ended up working, the team I had after Windows 95 was the Internet Explorer team, developer relations, a bunch of other internet technologies that I worked again with Brad on, because the browser and all the internet technologies became so paramount. We were really worried, legitimately worried, that the browser would become a new platform. No one would build apps for Windows anymore. They would just build internet apps, basically. And, so it was a very big concern at the time. And of course, we said, look, the browser has to be a part of the operating system. I mean, you wouldn't buy any product today, like a phone or a tablet or a computer without a browser. I mean, it'd be like a car without, a seatbelt or something, or an engine. So the server bet was a big bet because client-server computing was critical. And Microsoft was really, though I was a big part of the consumer efforts for Microsoft, Microsoft's really more of an enterprise company, especially now. My main contribution to the server business was for us to rethink the business of the server business. So my concept was, look, you can't have one Windows Server product meet all the needs of all the customers. And it's also not a good business strategy to try to sell one product. You're going to sell it too expensively for some and too inexpensively for others. So I had the team. Mike Nash was the person who worked for me on the marketing of the server business. And I asked him to go put an exercise together about how to build a family of Windows Server products that would make more sense than just having one. It would be a better business opportunity for us. It would better meet the needs of customers. So we did that. And that was my main contribution to the server business, was helping us think through the next evolution of the Windows Server business. I'm probably most proud of, in my time at Microsoft, of the people I met and the teams I helped build and the people I helped hire, and how being a part of that really transformed all our lives. There are people who I hired who met their spouses here, who have children here, who moved here because, I hired them, or who got to work on products that, where I recruited them to be a part of. And that's, like an amazing experience. And I feel like I had a small piece of that. And, of course, we had amazing camaraderie because, when things go well and you're the leader, you get credit. So I was the greatest marketing guy since sliced bread, but that's all a bunch of baloney. The reality is, I helped set the strategy and the direction, but it's the quality of the team that makes all the difference. There are many lessons I learned from my experience at Microsoft that I like to impart to others. The first and biggest one is the importance of business strategy. You could have great people. You could have great products. But if you're not making the right bets, it doesn't matter. If we built, a Windows 95 product that no one cared about, it wouldn't matter if it was a great product. But we built a product that met what customers were looking for. And so you can be charismatic. You can be dynamic. You could be smart. You can be empathetic as a leader. But if you don't make the right bets and you don't do the right strategy, then you will not succeed. Now, you still need all those other qualities, no question, right? You want to execute well, you want to have great products and so on, but you need to make the right bets. Windows 95 was the right bet. What we did with MS-DOS was the right bet. What we did with the server business was the right bet. What we did with the cloud business was the right bet. What we did in mobile was the right idea, but the wrong bet. What we did in some other areas of the business was the right idea, but the wrong bet. Right? So no one gets all the bets right all the time. But that's one of my most important learnings, is that strategy is job one. I don't know that I have a legacy so much, but I think all of us have a legacy. And that's the one thing I think would be great for people to be aware of, that history and what those people and those teams did to lay the foundation for today's Microsoft success, and to lay that learning in history. Because, Microsoft's going great today. Our history is fantastic. The one thing I would like is for that history to be something that people are aware of and learn from, and that legacy be, an experience that drives the future for Microsoft. Because in the end, what's past is sort of past, and what you learn from the past and what you enjoy from the past helps drive a great and bright future.